It's a man.
I don't know about all that. Sometimes I feel like half a man, but sometimes when I'm joined by Steve Bartle, I feel completed. Steve Bartle joins us right now. Steve, writing for KSL Sports, covering all the Utah sports out there. Also, the Utah broadcast, and we got him right now with us today. Steve, man, thanks so much for joining.
Pete, man, it's been a long time coming. I've been looking forward to this for a really long time, man.
Yeah, dude, it's cool to get together, make a little magic here. I do want to. I saw a piece of breaking news from a legitimate source. On3 is reporting that Sam Leavitt is done for the season for Arizona State. What do you, just quickly, you have a real pulse for the Big 12 in the league. What do you make of that move, and how does it impact the conference?
Yeah, coming into the season, I thought Sam Leavitt was the best quarterback in the league, and he just – going back to last year, he proved that he knew how to win, right? Coming down the stretch in clutch moments. He always seemed to come up big with big plays, whether through the air or on the ground. So for Arizona State, that's a tough one, right? That's a brutal one. They'll now transition to Jeff Sims and try to stay competitive. But that's a tough one for Arizona State, trying to stay in title contention this year. And unfortunate, Sam Leavitt was a tremendous talent, and that's a tough loss for the Sun Devils.
It is. I didn't think he was going to necessarily. I didn't think he was going to raise the bar when you compared him to last year, because I just thought that was a magnificent season for him as a redshirt freshman. But I didn't think, you never injury. You always just kind of take that out of the equation. But he's been hobbled all season long, and I guess I probably should have thought about that because he was hobbled late in the year, at the end of 2024. But here we are with a totally different conference. And that brings us, to Utah and your appointment tomorrow. You were kind enough to give me a little insight yesterday, telling me that Devin Dampier is on track to start. And it was funny, dude. I had your boy Scott Mitchell on the show yesterday. And I said, hey, Bartle just told me this. What do you think about it? And he was like, well, I kind of wish Bird was going to start because of how well he played. Like, what are your thoughts on Dampier coming back, if you have the latest update on his availability, and your thoughts on what Scott said and your own opinion on who's the best to lead that team right now?
Yeah, I'll start with Bird, right? Going back to last week, a really exciting performance, right? He finished 10 of 22, but he started the game 1 of 7, and he had the 63-yard run, and I think the adrenaline was pumping a little bit and maybe juiced some passes. But once he settled in, he looked really comfortable. He looked poised. And I think the biggest thing that stood out about his performance more than anything else was simply looking like he belonged on the field. And so, he has a great outing. He finished with 291 total yards, 3 touchdowns. He was named Offensive Player of the Week and Freshman of the Week. And really has generated a lot of excitement for him and his future here at Utah. And I think a lot of people now want that future to start now. And, right or wrong, right, I think there's just a lot of excitement for Bird. But I think it's been really clear, really evident, hearing from Coach Whittingham, hearing from other coaches and players, what Devin Dampier means to this team, not only in the sense of, what he's done to get them to this point, but his leadership on and off the field is really, really crucial, really vital. And I think he is the unquestioned leader in that room. So I understand the excitement for Bird, but this is Dampier's team. And I think everybody kind of understands that. Now, coming back this week, there's probably going to be some pressure. There's probably going to be some desire, even on his part, to have a strong performance. Given what we saw from Ficklin last week, I would anticipate him being motivated to come out and play really well.
Where is Utah right now as far as your expectation preseason was concerned, and what are your projections for the rest of this season? I felt early on that loss to Texas Tech I felt like you ran into a buzzsaw. I didn't think that was an indication of who they were, for the rest of the year to come. And they've proven, that theory. Like, this is a good football team. But, if they can win this game against a ranked Cincinnati opponent at home, now we're talking going to Arlington and the possibility of playing in that title game becomes more and more of a reality. What's the pulse on the team from ground zero and their expectation and ability to make it to the Big 12 championship game?
Yeah, I think coming into the season, I always talked about this team being an 8-4, 9-3 type of team, getting to 10-2, getting to the Big 12 title game. That was going to be dependent upon players stepping up and making plays in some of these big games, right? The Texas Tech, the BYU game. And unfortunately, Utah didn't make enough plays in those games to get those wins. But I think in terms of the talent on this team, this is right in line with what I sort of anticipated this season. And talking to the players this week, they understand the importance of this game on Saturday night. Nothing else really matters. If they don't get this win against Cincinnati, not that they're completely eliminated from title contention, but it certainly impacts a lot of the tiebreaker scenarios that are currently actually in favor of Utah right now, with some of the anticipated results the rest of the way. So we'll see, but I think there's a lot of buy-in and a lot of focus just on getting this win. I remember, Saturday night going back to the Colorado win, 53-7, ran into a couple players, a couple coaches after the game, and just the message the entire time from everybody was, we got to beat Cincinnati. So that's the mindset. They know how important this game is, and this game, beyond just what it means in the Big 12 title race. I mean, you think of kind of the context around the season. Utah's been on a national stage now this will be 3 times with ESPN College GameDay, right? Fox Big Noon kickoff for the previous 2 big games. This is an opportunity to now get that big win on a national stage. And I think that's really important for Utah as they move forward into this next month, because the schedule and the matchups really set up well for them to finish the season on a real high note.
Take me through the end of the schedule. Just refresh my memory. Like, what are they have Cincinnati, and then what's the rest of the, like, is it manageable? Give me some details.
Yeah. It's Cincinnati this week, right? This is the big one, Cincinnati. And Cincinnati's playing great football. This is going to be a really tough contest. When you win 7 straight, they're playing great football. So it's going to be a tough test. But you get this one, and then you have a bye week, right? So you have a bye week to kind of reset, refresh for the final 3 games of the season. And that's going on the road to Baylor. You return home for what should be a really fun matchup against Kansas State. So you host the Wildcats. And then a tricky one is a Black Friday morning game in Lawrence, Kansas against the Kansas Jayhawks. Yeah. So when you look at the opponents, right, with the way Baylor's been trending, I know that they were considered one of the top contenders coming into the league, but haven't really lived up to expectations. Same with Kansas State. Yeah. You like the way that Utah matches up with those teams, given their rushing attack and how unstingy those teams have been against the rushing attack. So you like the matchup, but again, that last one, the Black Friday game, 10 a.m. kickoff or 10:30, I can't remember which one it is. That one's going to be tricky, but still pretty manageable.
Covering the Big 12 conference as you have, for a while now, particularly the last few years, what have you been able to glean from as to what stands out to you about this conference? What makes it great, and what for you has stood out this season?
It's just super competitive across the league, right? Utah was so unique in the Pac-12 because they were the tough guys. They were the pesky underdog. They played the physical brand and embraced that underdog mentality really well. And it fit really well in the Pac-12. In the Big 12, everybody else was sort of had that same sort of mindset, given who was in that conference with Oklahoma and Texas kind of being the standard in the league for so long. All the other teams in the Big 12 sort of embrace that underdog mentality as well. So that's really kind of what's made this conference so fun and so competitive, is you have just these teams that really feel like they're the underdog each and every week. And it's made for physical, competitive, wild outcomes pretty consistently. And you've seen it the last two seasons, right? Arizona State last year, picked dead last in the Big 12. They go on to win it. Cincinnati, not necessarily picked dead last in the conference. I think a lot of people had them in the bottom half, but still 7-1, 5-0 in the Big 12. There's always this room for surprise, and I think that's what makes the league so interesting to follow, is that all of these teams are, close to the same level in terms of talent composition, coaching, and it just makes for a lot of volatility, a lot of fun, and a lot of excitement.
Yeah, it's a great conference. I love it, and it's cool to hear somebody from you who knows what they're talking about. Somebody like you to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, what your experience has been, because it's brand new to a lot of folks in Utah, and there was a little bit of hesitancy about, hey, what are we getting ourselves into here? But I think it could be a conduit to a playoff appearance right now for the Utes,
Yep.
and they're sort of in control of their own destiny. So it'll be cool to see how that works out. All right, let's turn the page to hoops. It was cool for me to be at Big 12 Media Days to just see Alex Jensen walking around. He was in the I was calling games in the NBA D League at the time when he was, I think he was with Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And we must have played them like 100 times. Or the Canton Charge, he was the head coach of.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I forgot how big he was. I mean, obviously, he played for Majerus. He's a basketball player, but he's a big dude. And you did an amazing job covering that transition when Craig Smith was let go. And there was kind of like, great, what the heck happened? It was a weird time in the season. Yeah. Eilert takes over, and then Utah just kind of rides off into the sunset. The basketball team does. But now here we are, a ton of anticipation. And I'm curious, take me through, is getting someone like Alex Jensen with that NBA DNA, but also those Utah Utes, when you look, not far away in Provo, Kevin Young has that NBA resume, that NBA DNA that a lot of these young players are attracted to. Was this a move made? Obviously, you can't miss with Alex Jensen when you're talking about alums and people who love the Utes, but also you really can't miss with recruits, because this is a guy who's saying, look, I know the way. I literally have been there, just like Kevin Young. Was there sort of, and copycat's a lame term, but you get what I'm saying. Was there sort of like, hey, we see what they're doing, that's a way for us to do the same thing?
Yeah, I think with Alex Jensen and Utah specifically, there's been a long desire from the fan base to bring Alex Jensen home, essentially, right? And you can go back to when Craig Smith was hired back in, what was that, 2021, I believe, coming off the COVID year. There was a strong push for Alex Jensen then. So this is somebody that Utah fans, the boosters, and
was
people,
he offered the job? He was, right?
There's a lot of debate about how genuine that offer was, but yes, they talked about the job, and I think Alex Jensen was in a situation in the NBA where, we see it almost each and every year, but there's a cycle for these assistants that get opportunities to move up. And I think Alex Jensen felt like he was in a place where he could potentially be a guy on some short lists for head coaching jobs in the NBA. So it didn't work out in terms of the timing then. But I think this go around, a few years later, there was a lot of motivation from Utah boosters and Utah, the athletic department, to make this happen. And when you decide to fire a coach like Craig Smith, with the timing and in the manner that it was done, it was met with criticism, which I think was fair. But at the same time, it was a move that Utah almost had to make, because they had to make this move to bring Alex Jensen back to the program. And I think what he's done to kind of reignite the passion for the basketball program was the big motivation for Utah to make this move, given his connection to the past and the glory days under Rick Majerus, his experience in the NBA and the relationships and knowledge that he possesses. It made an impact right away for Utah as they started to kind of reconstruct the roster through the transfer portal. They brought in a handful of guys that, when you just look at their talent profiles as recruits coming out of high school and in the transfer portal themselves, were the type of guys that Utah has rarely been able to bring in. And I think that was really exciting. And it was due in large part to some of the relationships that Alex had. Coach Chilius, Rafael Chilius, who was an ace recruiter for the last 15 years in college basketball, spent time at Washington, spent time with Georgetown, and a couple other places as well. And each spot he's been in, he's been just a tremendous recruiter. And I think to see that the initial fruits of that with who they brought in from the transfer portal, there's a lot of excitement. And it gets back to having the know-how. And players talked about this. Keanu Dawes and James Okonkwo talked about this at Big 12 Media Days, is they had a detailed plan for what they saw in them, their projection, sort of their role, how they would help them develop as players, as people, as students. And that sort of detail, I think, has been missing for Utah in for so many years, that I think Alex bringing that from the NBA is going to help Utah significantly.
When you look at what's going on with BYU hoops, like AJ DeBonsa, like Rob Wright going over from Baylor, what do you make of what's happening over there and the resources of such a huge rival of the Utes, and how they're not only pulling away from Utah, it would seem, but from everybody else? Like, this is not something that I don't think anyone saw, in their crystal ball. At least I didn't, like 5-6 years ago. I mean, they made their first Sweet 16 ever last March, and now here we are. People are out of their minds about this team and this basketball season. What's your take on that, being close to it?
Yeah, being so close to it, you hear about it all the time from from everybody. But no, it's been interesting, and I think for BYU fans, the previous decade, being an independent and kind of being in turmoil all those years, while Utah and other programs around them have been in conferences and in conference battles. BYU fans, I think there's just a lot of motivation now to really capitalize on this opportunity now, being in a conference like the Big 12. And with NIL now becoming legal, there's a lot of, again, excitement and motivation for that program to kind of put themselves on a higher tier, a higher level of competitiveness. So it's kind of been this perfect storm for BYU, given the fact that they have spent the last 10, 12, 15 years in in independence by themselves, all alone, where you're not really competing for anything but a bowl game and basketball opportunities and all of that. I just think it's kind of become this perfect storm for that program. And for the Big 12, I think there's now a lot of motivation to raise the bar themselves. I know that's been a big thing for Utah with the basketball program itself, Alex Jensen being a part of that. There's a lot of motivation now to raise the resources around the basketball program, not only to keep pace, but to put themselves, at the top where a lot of the fan base, Utah fan base, feels like this program belongs.
When the Utah, like the new arena, the Huntsman Center, which is awesome. I mean, that's where the most, you could say, dude, maybe the most important basketball game of all time was ever played in that building. 79, Bird versus Magic, Indiana State, and Michigan State. Like, that's a historic venue, and going in there, you get goosebumps sometimes. But it's also, I think you would agree, maybe time to turn the page. And I know there's a new building coming up. What's the update on that, and when's it opening? Like, what's the story there? Because I've seen, like, renderings, I'm not like a real builder, so for me to even say renderings is a big deal. Like, you give me a hammer and we're going to have a long day. But really, what's it looking like? When's it going to open? Give me some details.
Yeah, it's a couple years away, and if you've seen renderings that I haven't even seen. So I'm going to ask you to send those to me. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think there's a lot of motivation for Utah to build a new arena. As you said, the John M. Huntsman Center is one of the most iconic venues in college basketball. Last year, a couple programs came to Salt Lake City for the first time. Kansas State. Bill Self is obviously what he is, right? You say his name, that name, what it means in college basketball. I asked him about what it meant to be here in the John M. Huntsman Center, and he just spoke about it in reverence, right? Like, that's what that arena means. At the same time, to your point, it's a little outdated, right? In terms of the amenities for players, coaches, for fans, for the fan base, and what the arena offers. It is just a little old, a little outdated, and it's going to be much easier to simply tear it down and build a new arena. And this is part of a bigger topic conversation with Utah, which is going through a major transformation as a university. There's been a lot of housing units going up on campus. Utah, with under President Taylor Randall, is trying to make this more of an on-campus university because that's been an element that I think Utah has, I don't want to say held them back, but it's just a step that they want to take as a university. And with the Olympics coming to Salt Lake City, that also plays a role in all of this as well. But we're a couple years away before we start seeing, hearing real concrete updates on the new basketball arena. But it's what Utah needs is a new arena, right? The basketball programs, the gymnastic program, the Red Rocks with what they do, they deserve a new program. They deserve new amenities. And I think it'll be a good thing. And then as Utah continues to evolve as a university itself, that's going to help them into the future. You know, as we talk about conference realignment and all these conversations, that's what this is all about.
And, you know, ESPN broadcasters, NBC broadcasters, Fox broadcasters won't have to pester John Vu about, hey, is there a bathroom down here that we can use, dude? Because you let us use the
dude,
bathroom.
That's what I mean.
I mean, I'm like, dude, and I don't mind. Honestly, that's how I got to meet you, because I was marching upstairs to go to the bathroom, and we shook hands and started talking and catching up. So what a blessing. See that? The Huntsman Center continues to give back to basketball and fans everywhere. Bartle, any Halloween plans?
Man, this is my first Halloween with our son. He's 2.5 years old. So we've got him dressed up as a fireman. He's really loved fire trucks and stuff. So our first Halloween with the kid, and looking forward to getting out and having a good time with him.
Oh, what's his name?
Miles.
Yeah. All right, we got Miles. He's the fireman. Can we get Miles Bartle over here? We've got him. Need to put out a fire. Steve, man, thank you for giving me the opportunity to use that. All right, man.
That was great.
I really appreciate you taking the time. You're a great dude, a great writer, and you bring to college sports what we need more of, which is efficient, accurate, aggressive reporting, and you do a hell of a job. So I encourage everybody, follow Bartle on Twitter. Check him out, KSL Sports. He does all the writing there, and the Utah Blockcast. Am I missing anything? Where can people find you, by the way?
No, that's good, man. KSLsports.com, the Utah Blockcast. You can find us on YouTube at KSL Sports. You can find us on your podcast feeds everywhere, on Twitter, Bartle KSL Sports. And yeah, dude, I appreciate you having me on. Like I said to start, it's been a long time coming. We've been talking about this for a really long time. So I'm happy that we finally got this done and really, really enjoyed this conversation, Pete.
Yeah, man, I'll see you out in Salt Lake City. I'll let you know when I have a game out there this year, but I appreciate you.
Please do. Yeah, please do. We'll grab some lunch, man.
You got it, bro. Take care. Steve Bartle does an amazing job, dude. I got to know Steve and his work just when Craig Smith was unceremoniously fired. I mean, I'd read Steve before that happened, but I mean, if you wanted to know what was going on inside that situation and what was going to happen in the future, he was the guy. And it was – for him, he was so sourced up. I think it was only a matter of when he was comfortable sharing some of the information and when he could, using that like journalistic integrity. But check him out, dude. You want to know anything about the Big 12 Utah sports, that's your guy. The Pete Souza Show is going to step aside. We'll come back. I want to talk about Vanderbilt and Texas. All right. That's the biggest game this weekend nobody's talking about. And a couple other things, so a little potpourri, and then we'll get out of here and let Scotty go trick-or-treating. I know he's got a big night planned, all right? The Pete Souza Show presented by Slovakics. We'll be right back.